Yo, what's going on, everybody? Here on today's show, going to be taking a look at some of the top roster and rotation battles for the Sixers heading into this season. Some spots where we're not sure who is going to start. So, who's going to step up, who is going to earn those minutes, and I'll tell you who I think will win each of those battles. I'm excited for today's show. So, let's get into it. But, real quick, before we do, I want you to be honest with me. With the state that this Sixers roster is currently in, do you think they'll win more or less than 42 and a half games this season? If you think more, type M down in the comments. If you think less, type L down in the comment section. So there's really three main roster rotation battles I'm looking at for this upcoming season. And of course, the first one, as we talked about a lot here on the show, that's starting two guard, right? Who's going to start next to Tyrese Maxey, and how is that entire guard rotation going to look? Because the Sixers are pretty loaded at that guard spot. Now, I think it's pretty obvious. Three guys that are in contention to start at the two. Quentin Grimes, assuming he does end up back on this team. Jared McCain, and third overall pick, VJ Edgecombe. So let's make the case for each of these guys to start. Starting here with Quentin Grimes. Look, obviously the most proven option, even though not a huge body of work of being a super high level player, but more proven than McCain, who's essentially only played 20-something games and a rookie in VJ Edgecombe. Got that two-way ability, which I think is a big case for him to start next to Maxey. You want somebody with Maxey who has a little more size, which Grimes has, and is a good defender, which he is. And, of course, what he showed at the end of last season on the offensive side of the ball, being able to score the ball in his hands, and probably going to be the highest paid out of all these three as well once he does eventually sign that contract with Philadelphia. Now, for Jared McCain. Obviously, very, very exciting, right? Now, that rookie year he had was cut very short by the injury, so we'll have to see how he does come off that meniscus injury. By all accounts, right now he's doing very well, but showed a lot of really good flashes. And with McCain, that shooting ability, man, so valuable in today's NBA for any team, really. And what he was also able to show, kind of similar to Grimes, is where McCain showed me more off the dribble, creating his own shots, especially for McCain getting to that mid-range, getting to that free throw line. A lot more than I thought he really had in his bag. So that impressed me, and it leaves me wanting to see a lot more and wanting to play him big minutes. And then for VJ Edgecombe, right? The third overall pick, the exciting option here. Of course, easily the most athletic out of all these three guys, has the tools defensively as well, was a great defender in college, has to prove it in the NBA, but I imagine he will be pretty good on that side of the ball right away. And I would say has the highest upside, even just this season, out of all three of these options, if he is able to reach that higher ceiling that he does have. And man, him and Maxey in that backcourt, two guys that would be a blur in transition at that 1-2 guard spot. If he can tighten up the handle a little bit and improve that three-point shot a little bit, as soon as this season, that could be a really dangerous combo at that guard spot. But for me, I've been saying this. I think Grimes gets the nod, assuming he is back. McCain, I just don't think has enough defensively right now with his shorter size to start next to Maxey. And of course, coming off the injury, as we mentioned, then VJ. No, he's a third overall pick, but is a rookie and does have some things to work on. So as long as Grimes is back on this team, he's the guy I would slide into that starting lineup. Just has everything from the scoring, the defense, and obviously what he showed at the end of last season. You know my pick. You tell me yours. You can disagree with me. That is totally fine. Just let me know down in the comment section. Who would you start? Quentin Grimes, type QG. Jared McCain, type JM. Or are you starting the Rook? Type VJ down below in the comment section. Next roster battle we got to talk about is really this forward rotation as a whole, because the Sixers have a lot of bodies here, but no true standout options. So who's going to start? At the 3, we assume that's going to be Paul George, right? But more importantly, who's going to start at the 4? So again, a lot of guys here, and I'm listing the two-way guys in Dominic Barlow and Jabari Walker because we have to talk about them, and I'll touch on them in a little bit. You assume Paul George is going to be starting. If he's healthy, they're obviously not bringing him off the bench. If he's not healthy, obviously, then you start two of these guys. But the big question, right? I two questions really with this forward rotation. Number one is who actually gets the start at the 4. This is probably the Sixers' biggest question they have to answer. Assuming you're going Maxey, Grimes, as I said, Paul George if he's healthy, and Embiid if he's healthy, who gets that starting spot at the 4? Because the Sixers don't really have a traditional starting four after they lost Gershon Yabusele, who I think would have been perfect in that spot. Now, three guys that I think will be competing for this role. Kelly Oubre has been in this role for a while for Philadelphia. Not your traditional starting four, but today's NBA, it doesn't really matter. It's more guards, wings, and bigs at this point anyways. Justin Edwards as well, coming off that fantastic rookie season. And then new addition, Trendon Watford. So once again, let's make the case for each of these three guys to start. For Kelly Oubre, of course, a guy that's been starting here for a couple seasons now in Philadelphia. Similar to what I was talking about with Grimes, he is the most experienced out of all these guys, not just being in Philadelphia, but been around the NBA for quite a long time now. Plays with that effort and intensity that has made him a fan favorite here in Philadelphia, and he makes a lot of plays on the defensive side of the ball, even if he's not the most consistent defensive player. Does make a lot of highlight-worthy plays, and again, always gives that full effort. He's a smart player. He can play off the ball well. He knows when and where to cut, and he really improved his rebounding. Always thought that was somewhere he could be better at, and the Sixers really, really need rebounding help, and he showed he can be a big part in that. Now, for Justin Edwards, this is where things start to get interesting because, of course, the former UDFA had a very good second half of the rookie season, right? And yes, it was against lesser competition when the Sixers were kind of out of things, right? And he was just getting a ton of minutes, but still looked very, very impressive. And so he showed those flashes at the end of the rookie year. And he's in that mold, that more traditional 3-and-D mold where Kelly Oubre, 29% three-point shooter last year. It's tough to insert into your starting lineup, especially come playoff time. So Edwards, more traditional 3-and-D. I think he can be a better defender than Kelly Oubre can, at least more consistently, and showed some skills as well, scoring with the ball in his hands. That won't need to be his role, but it's good to know that's in there as well. I think he has a high upside as, again, a former top 3 recruit entering college. Now for Trendon Watford, the new addition. I really like the unique skill set Watford can bring because at 6'8", he does handle the ball a lot. For Brooklyn, they asked him to do that a ton last year, and if you've been watching some of these summer highlights, I know summer highlights in the Sixers, going back to some of the Ben Simmons stuff, you don't always want to read too much into that, but a bunch of the Sixers guys were doing in the Rico Hines runs the other day. It was a full squad of Sixers. I think it was Watford, VJ, Barlow, Jabari Walker, and one other player. I forget who it was there. Watford was bringing the ball up pretty much every time for that Sixers squad. He can make plays for others. He can handle the rock. He ran the pick and roll last year for the Nets, and a decent enough athlete with a long wingspan, and he's versatile. He can kind of guard all across the board. So an interesting, unique option, something the Sixers haven't really had here in a little bit. But with that being said, I'm going to go with a safe pick, I guess you could say, here in Kelly Oubre. I do think Watford makes a lot of sense to bring off the bench. And again, all these guys that we're talking about, even going back to the guards, they're all going to play minutes, right, and play big roles for this team. I think Oubre does get the start to begin the season. But I'll say this, if he continues to struggle from three and continues to shoot under 30% from out there, and Edwards can prove that what he did at the end of last year, he can continue to do, I like Edwards in that spot. But he has to prove it to me that it was more than, again, just half a season, because Summer League, he really wasn't very good either. Who starts at the 4, similar to earlier? Let me know who you're taking. I'm going Oubre, so I would be typing my KO. But if you're picking Edwards, type JE. If you're picking Trendon Watford, type TW. Now, on top of that, with this forward and talking about the power forward position, I think Oubre starts, but what does the rest of the rotation look like? Of course, the 3 guys we already talked about, all 3 of them will play. But I really want to touch on the two-way guys, because right now the Sixers have 2 open roster spots. One, I'm assuming, will go to Grimes. The other is going to go to either Dominic Barlow or Jabari Walker. And either of these 2 guys, I think, would really be able to help you at that 4 spot. Dominic Barlow, 6'9", 215, super, super athletic, but has never been able to put it all together in terms of the jump shot. Just looks a little bit raw when he's out there. As a reason the Spurs, the Hawks, they have moved on from a player like him. But like, you have him on a 2-way, you need somebody who can kind of do the dirty work, right? And with his athleticism and his ability to rebound the basketball, I think he has some more potential there. He'd be a very intriguing option. And then Jabari Walker, someone who spent some time in Portland. Again, similar size, 6'8", 214. Blazers fans, they acknowledge he's kind of a too small to play the 5, a little too slow to play the 4, a little bit of a tweener, but hustles very hard. He is a tremendous rebounder. That's where he really, really excels, and where the Sixers really need him to make an impact. And look, shot well from three last year, hasn't really shot well from three in his career, and it's not a great release, doesn't take a ton of them, so I'm not so sure he has that shot in his diet. Either of these two guys you hope can develop that three-point shot, but look, you just need him to play with effort and rebound the basketball. He could easily make this team. So one of those two, I assume, will get that final roster spot for Philadelphia. Which of them can prove it during training camp, during preseason? We'll have to see, but I'm pretty confident that at least one of those two guys will show enough to end up getting real rotation minutes for Philadelphia this season. Now, before we get to my last position battle, roster battle here for the Sixers, got to tell you guys about today's sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. Preseason football is over. Regular season football is almost here. College football is here as well, so don't miss any of the action this season on Prize Picks. And look, Prize Picks is super fun, and it's super, super simple to play. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. It's the best way to win real money this football season. Which players you think are going off? Which ones aren't? You can put your ball of knowledge to the test. And I love Prize Picks because of the discounts they're always offering. And in week one, look, I know for my fellow Eagles fans out there, we hate Dak Prescott, right? But their special max discount for week one of the football season, Dak Prescott more than a half passing yard. I don't think he'll throw for that many, but he's definitely going to throw for at least one, right? So going with the more there, combine that with Jalen Hurts more than a half rushing and receiving touchdown. Get that brotherly shove in the end zone. And then Saquon Barkley, Cowboys rushing defense is horrendous. More than 92 and a half rushing yards. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. The final roster battle here on the Sixers roster for the season, the backup center spot. And you might even say the starting center spot if Joel Embiid doesn't play a whole lot of games. Any of these guys we're about to talk about could be playing a lot of minutes and starting a lot of games. So, once again, 3 guys I'm looking at here. Adem Bona. I'm lumping Janai Broom in with the centers. I know some of you might want to argue he could be lumped in with the forwards. I really think his role will be more of that center position, even if he's a little bit undersized. And then, of course, the vet Andre Drummond as well. Let me get this out of the way really quick, because I don't want to spend too much time talking about Drummond. I do think he'll be traded, whether it's early in the season or more towards the deadline. I don't think he has a huge role on this team. I think that's why the Sixers drafted Broom when they already had Bona on this roster as well. I know you need depth behind Joel Embiid because you don't know when he's going to play and how many games. But Drummond, I don't see him as a part of this rotation. So it's really Bona and Broom for me. And look, Adem Bona showed a lot of flashes in his rookie season as a second-round pick. Was always a really good defender at UCLA and showed that off in the NBA. Now he needs to be a smarter defender. Fouls way too much. He almost fouled out of multiple summer league games when you get 10 fouls. Unbelievable to do that, right? But if he could be a little more disciplined, he has insane athleticism. Even though he's shorter at 6'8", he will dunk all over you. He plays a lot bigger than his size, and I like his upside as a really good backup center. I don't think he'll ever be a true high-level starting center. And then Janai Broom, very interesting to talk about because I was not a fan of the pick when the Sixers made it at the top of the second round. I think there were better options, and I still think there probably were better options, but I'm willing to give him some time to start his NBA career because he was a very productive college player. In the summer league, look, had some good, had some bad. You saw the skills he had rebounding the basketball. You also saw the athletic limitations that were one of my big concerns. I will say, he really impressed me as a three-point shooter. Now, he really struggled, surprisingly, finishing at the rim. He shot under 40% from the field across all his summer league games, but shot 39% from three. So kind of different than the kind of player I thought he was going to be. We'll see what happens when he gets to the NBA, but I would like to see a rotation of Broom and Bona running that backup center, one of them starting, probably Bona starting over Broom when Embiid is out. I don't need to see any of Andre Drummond this season, barring some more major injuries. Grade the 76ers roster for me. We just ran through a lot of the guys that are going to be playing pretty important roles for Philadelphia. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. Don't hold back. Give me your honest thoughts down in the comments. That'll do it for today's show. The NBA season, man, it keeps getting closer and closer. And if you want to stay up to date on everything going on with your Philadelphia 76ers, hit that sub button, turn on your notifications, and we'll get you next time right here on 76ers Now.